welcome back to the Royal Mint Museum podcast, Secret Life of Coins, with me, your host, Chris Barker. With me today are my two co-hosts, Susie Sanford.
Hello.
And Abigail Kempin.
Hello.
For this episode, we are going to look at coin jewellery, or bling, as we have called the episode. And it just goes to show how common coin jewellery is by the fact that we all have come across it so much, including us. I know for a fact you've got a coin necklace. It is a necklace, isn't it, Abigail?
Earrings, Christopher.
Earrings, not necklace, sorry.
I have got earrings that I acquired when I went to Peru.
Peru?
Yeah, in my early 20s. So this is way, way, way before I started working at the Mint. Spent some time in Peru and was in a market and found these beautiful earrings made from coins.
And they just remind you of your time in Peru?
Yeah, I love them. Yeah, they're just really low denomination coins, but really beautifully, beautifully made.
You're less of a coin bling person though, aren't you, Susie?
I am not a bling person at all, really. But I do like wandering around the Christmas markets, like the Christmas markets in Cardiff, and seeing all the stalls with, typically it's, again, low-value coins like farthings and old pennies and stuff mounted as jewellery.
Turn into cufflinks or whatever it might be.
Yeah, with maybe significant years for people or what have you.
And I know my partner, she's got a necklace, which is probably why I was thinking you got a necklace, with a coin on which has got a whale shark on it, which got bought for her in Australia. So it just goes to show that we've all come across it in one way or another. But during this episode, we will see how this has developed throughout history, looking at the work of the modern Royal Mint, how siege pieces have been worn during the Civil War, and going all the way back to the fall of the Roman Empire. And this is where we are going to start today's episode.
Yeah, we've been looking at this, haven't we?
Yeah.
And it's been a lovely thing to be looking at. Who doesn't want to look at beautiful objects, beautiful coins set into lovely jewellery?
There's some brilliant examples out there.
Gosh,
ancient examples.
Like people have been wearing coins as jewellery for a long time. There's a fabulous article on the Met Museum's website written by a lovely lady called Stephanie Caruso, who we actually had a chat to in advance of this episode. And she writes about this really fabulous 4th century pendant from North Africa. It's a large round sort of medallion, and it's got set into it 6 gold coins around a large central coin as well. And it's just so ornate, so beautiful, and the work that's gone into it far surpasses just wearing coins. It just goes to show how important these things must have been in order for them to be set in such an ornate setting.
It's a really big thing, isn't it? If you wear it around your neck, it looks like there's a collar to wear around your neck, and it'd be a very obvious sign or status symbol that's shown around probably where your collarbone area is.
This is a real sort of display of wealth here, isn't it? You know, this is almost disposable income that you're wearing. You know, you're saying that you can afford to wear these coins. You don't need to spend them, you can wear them.
And we're almost segueing a little bit here onto the why. Why would you put these coins, which are, as you've made the point, very valuable gold coins, real obvious display of wealth. So why are people doing this? Why are they putting in these really intricate bits of jewellery?
Absolutely. I had a bit of a brainstorm when I was researching for this in the wee hours of the morning, and did kind of a little spider chart of all the different reasons that I could think of that people might wear these things. And I sort of broke it down into 3 main sections. There was the idea of sort of symbolism, of these coins being symbolic of like religion or something like that. There was the idea of them being a token, like something that's meaningful to the person. And then there was the idea of them being a display of status or wealth. And I think within those, there are as many reasons for wearing them as there are people.
And once you start breaking these examples down, it's really interesting to think about it, because there's clearly meaning behind it. You can get the obvious wealth element to it. So this is a lot of gold, high status, high value coins. So you're going to see wealth and power just resonated from them. But then are you showing your allegiance to a particular emperor or allegiance to a particular cause by showcasing the emperor very visibly when you're wearing these?
I think there's also an element that carries on from that, is that there's the thought that once these coins have been made into jewellery, that you're sort of invoking the protection of the emperor as well. So perhaps that coin would protect you against disease, against bad luck, against evil spirits.
And in late antiquity, we know get a very religious society. This is when Roman Empire has gone to Christianity. So this idea of divine power coming through the emperor, seeking divine intervention. And church officials in the late 4th century were criticizing people for wearing coins as charms and amulets. And so you see surviving examples with Greek inscriptions on, such as Lord protect the wearer. So you're getting that element of it as well.
And I think you can also ascribe a kind of personal link to these things. The coins might be significant in a devotional way, but they also might be significant as to where you got the coin from. If you've got some of the examples I was looking at, you've got hundreds of years between when the coins were struck, so they've been collected over a period of time. Is that part of a pilgrimage? Is that significant to the wearer in terms of they've been to those countries, or are they like souvenirs? Could be anything.
A family collection.
Yeah.
The family showcasing its ancestry and its connection to significant Roman power over a period of time. But in order to learn more, Susie and I went to Northampton to look at a find from a recent archaeological dig where they came across a high status burial of a woman. Amongst the other objects that were found was a spectacular gold necklace containing garnets, gemstones, glass, and significantly for us, coins.
So I'm Ellie Cox and I am a Finds Liaison Officer or FLO. I work for the Portable Antiquities Scheme. I'm the FLO for Northants. So I deal with treasure. Treasure can take a long time to process, as there's a number of steps because it's a legal process. And this happens to be not the most straightforward of treasure cases, many moving parts. So it's been gradually excavated and conserved, and lots of study being done into it before a full report will be accessible and available. But yeah, quite an intricate find.
So set the scene for us. When, where and how was it found?
So it was found 2022. It was the second from last day of a pre-development excavation near the village of Harpole. That's the name, in Northamptonshire, very close to Northampton, in fact. And I remember it as getting a phone call from someone on site saying, there's gold, there's gold. But of course, the dig was supposed to wrap up the next day. So this was just the final sweep along, get everything tidied up, make sure everything's recorded, do all those last, crossing T's, dotting I's, and then a quick sweep and gold starts popping
really
up.
Fortuitously found it when they did then.
Absolutely. They were astonished. I was astonished. Everyone.
So it's lifted. You've lifted a big block of soil and you've taken it back to a lab. What did they find when they start excavating it in the labs?
Well, a lot of gold. There's a number of other things which are going to appear in the report. It's a bed burial.
Right.
So this is probably a female on a bed. There's a number of organic components which are still being understood and studied because obviously they degrade a great deal in the soil. Things like ceramics, etc., and whatever else might have been put in there, say joints of meat, whatever might be in there, they're still being understood. But the individual had a phenomenal ornate gold and garnet necklace, a huge silver cross as well. And when they got a really good look at it, there is a beautiful gold and garnet square pendant with sort of a cross in the centre of it, depicted by the garnets, and a lot of wonderful spacer beads to keep the components sort of separate and evenly spaced along the neckline. And held within the additional pendants are gold coins or pseudo coins.
And one thing you said there was coins or pseudo coins. So explain a little bit about what we know about the coins, or what we so far know about these coins.
So the coins are, the denomination would be a solidus, that gold coin denomination from the late Roman period. They're struck under the name of Theodosius I.
Right.
So Theodosius reigned between 379 and 3 495.
So we're right at the back end of the Roman Empire from a British point of view. Anyway.
Absolutely. So about 410 is where it all sort of ends
Goes
here. It all sort of collapses in. So he's the very, very end. And it's got a lovely diademed bust of Theodosius facing to the right. The reverse depicts two emperors with a winged victory above, and it says Victoria, AVGG, on the reverse. So the reverse is, the legends are retrograde.
Right.
So the reverse legends are in reverse, which the official coinage would not have had. So they could be contemporary copies, as the Roman Empire is struggling and it's not producing coinage as much, or perhaps not spreading it as far and wide
All
as
the way
people
out
would
to Roman
like.
Britain. It's a long way from the centre.
Absolutely. They are, they have the mint mark of Trier.
Right.
So not too far away,
Yeah.
just on the continent. But as I say, in retrograde. But you do get these contemporary copies in gold, though.
Gold is the tricky one. That
Gold
makes it
makes it
weird.
tricky.
Yeah.
But they do occur, copies from this era. But it's a little tricky to say with the Harpole examples because they are so good.
Yeah. You've got a wealthy individual. She's wearing this beautiful necklace, and there's been some effort to go to put coins or pseudo coins on this amazing necklace with all these garnets. She didn't have to put this on, or the designer didn't have to put coins on, but there's clearly a purpose that these coins were selected to go on the necklace.
There absolutely is. This was very intentional, and very thoughtful. So then we get into the territory, the murkiest of grey areas of why.
Yes.
Why choose Roman?
Because it's 2
imagery?
centuries after the Romans have
Absolutely.
left Britain.
Absolutely. Well, what was that? Was that 4 generations, shall we say?
Yeah.
3-4 generations? So then is it that there is perhaps a status link with Romans and the way life once was? Is it rose-tinted glasses looking back on the good old days when the Romans were here? Perhaps that was an outlook. Of course, this is a Christian high-status burial.
And we know that about the individual, that she's Christian.
Yes, she has the large silver cross and the smaller cross on her. She has distinctive Christian iconography. And, of course, you begin to get Christianity within the Roman world with the Emperor Constantine. So is there a link? Perhaps it's more of a Christian symbolism than actually Roman imagery to the mind of the person. Is it because we really like old things? That's perhaps simplifying it, but as an archaeologist, and with the heritage side of things, there is that making you feel a link to the past, perhaps rooted and grounded in a past culture. Is it more that that's sort of part of the human condition, that we do look back, that we do want that link to the past? There's a number of options, or indeed, does it have to be any one of those things?
Yeah, be all of them together.
It can be far more nuanced. So, yes, when it gets to that sort of interpretation, it's going to, I think, be quite an intricate interpretation of motivation, because the sheer status of this woman is incredible. It would be incredible anywhere.
Right.
The skills involved in creating the objects with her, the fact that she was buried on a bed, she was obviously very highly thought of. You can't take out the component I always think of with burials, which is they didn't bury themselves.
Somebody's actively gone to that trouble to
Absolutely.
curate those objects.
The people around her, her family, her community, the society around her, they thought this much of her.
Where does it sit then in terms of the finds of treasure for you within Northamptonshire, but also within the UK?
I've been really fortunate in the objects that have been brought to me. I've had some amazing finds brought into me over the years. I'm doing this quite a while now. I think we're on 15 years now. I've been really lucky. Wonderful area to work in. But the Harpole is that showstopper.
What an amazing object. It's a real shame that Susie and I didn't actually get to see it, to be honest.
It was a bit disappointing, shall we say, just to talk about an object that we couldn't see. We did get a tour of the Archaeological Research Centre.
Amazing setup there as well.
Yeah, it really was. But yeah, we didn't actually see the necklace. But that's partly because it's still with MOLA.
Museum of London Archaeology.
Yeah, and they're currently doing loads of work on it. So it was nice to be able to talk about something that's in the process of being analysed.
It's just such a recent find.
Absolutely. And the plan is for it to go on display. I think Ellie said that it was going to stay in the county as well. So it's going to be available for local people to see it and study it.
It's one we'll definitely have to come back to because there's going to be years of work in this. And I really want to find the end story once they've done all the analysis, to be honest.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's so much you can find out as well. And you can't take anything for granted with these things. There's so much research.
And on that point, there are some parts of this interview that we should really pick apart a bit more. So, for example, pseudo-coins.
Yeah, so pseudo-coins, she mentions this, doesn't she? Uses this term. And I think the best way we can describe them is that they're not official coins. They're not sort of legal tender, but they've been produced to resemble real coins.
They're copies, essentially. They're somebody doing either a really good copy or a really bad copy, but in this instance for use in jewellery.
And from what Ellie was saying, they're ridiculously good, like really, really good.
We also don't know whether they actually are pseudo coins or whether they are coins yet
they're
either.
That good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. They need to do more research to find out what they're actually made of. I think she talked in the interview a bit about doing analysis of the composition of both the coins themselves and their fixings, because if they're made of the same metal, the same composition of metal, then there's a good chance they were all made together. But that they don't know until they find out or they test.
And equally, the more research into the individual as well, the person who was buried with this, there was some bits that we can infer from what was found. So, for example, that it was a female, it was a bed burial, there was other objects with it. But that will be fascinating when they actually finally get round to looking in more detail at some of the actual remains of that individual, the fragmentary remains that are there.
And I think that's something that you need to remember front and centre. Yes, this is a really fabulous object and wow, isn't it exciting to find something like this? But also that object was buried with a person and that person had a story and a life, and it's trying to piece that together so many years later.
I like the point that Ellie made about it being the people that buried her that are making this point. We don't even know whether she wore that necklace in life. That could be a funerary object, in which case it's a gift that's given to her by her community. We don't know if it was hers or not. And
that's as fascinating as if she actually wore it in life in some ways. Why bury someone with this hugely expensive, hugely ornate object? That's really interesting to pull apart and think about.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way of really knowing. It's always going to be a mystery.
It's the not knowing sometimes that makes history so magical.
So there's lots of things we don't know, but let's talk about some things that we do know about with regards to coins and jewellery, such as siege pieces.
So siege pieces, they're produced in the 1640s during the English Civil War, and they're essentially makeshift coins, aren't they?
Money of necessity, right?
Besieged town, parliamentary forces camped outside, can't get any money in. Your local blacksmith therefore melts down the silver plate of a gentry and creates these siege pieces, which are weird and wonderful shapes, but have a set weight.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be any sort of intention really to shape them sort of uniformly. So we do see them in all sorts of weird and wonderful
diamonds,
shapes.
Octagonal, goddess as well.
Yeah.
But importantly, they're struck with some kind of design that relates to the town or to the allegiance of the town, right? With crowns and such, if they're in support of the king.
You sometimes see obs, abbreviated Latin for siege, and then the name, like Newark, for example, or a little drawing of Scarborough Castle relating to Scarborough. And you often see these images of a crown and C1 or something like that.
Yeah, they're essentially a local currency, aren't they? Used to pay the garrisons.
But then those designs make them the perfect form of jewellery for showing your allegiance, right? You can put a hole in them. Don't we have some in the collection which have holes in them?
So despite their use of currency, we do find examples which are pierced, which means that they would probably be worn as sort of a badge of royalist loyalty, really, to show your support for Charles I or the future Charles II.
And there you've got an example of coins being worn, as you say, for allegiance to a particular cause, but they can just be worn for display. And more modern examples of that are where people wear, say, sovereign rings.
Yeah.
We've all seen a sovereign ring or a sovereign necklace. For those that haven't, maybe give us a bit of context as to what they are.
Well, they are literally a sovereign mounted on a ring that can be worn. I always think of them as being worn on the pinky finger.
Little finger.
Like a man's pinky ring, essentially.
And you see them in necklaces sometimes as well. Often more tend to be worn by women rather than the rings, which tend to be worn by men.
Yeah, and they're a sovereign is a good sized gold coin. It's a very obvious choice of jewellery.
Yeah, they're pretty chunky, aren't they?
It's a lot of money as well in the 19th and early 20th century when it's actually a circulating gold coin. So what we're seeing there is a display of wealth. Somebody showcasing, I can put, £1 on a ring or a necklace.
And is it maybe wrong to say, I always think of them associated with kind of salesmen. I think it's a sort of an external symbol that this guy's a wheeler dealer kind of thing.
Del-boy.
Bit del boy, yeah. Not in a bad way necessarily, but just that he's a trader.
I think it's just that the showiness of it all tends to be associated with those characters, has become associated with those characters. And you mentioned something about a Vinnie Jones advert, didn't you, at the GP?
Yeah, I was actually at the GP's the other day and there was a video being shown to advertise how to do CPR correctly. And it was Vinnie Jones in the video. And it was, a little bit tongue-in-cheek. And he was saying that if somebody is unconscious, you need to start CPR. You need to press hard and fast on the sovereign. And he was referring to the man who was lying down, had a sovereign necklace around his neck, and it indicated where to press on the chest.
It's really interesting that in that case, the sovereign as a pendant is in the right place on the sternum, that you know where to do CPR. That's another use of coins that we haven't even considered, right?
CPR aids.
Yeah.
Please do not take this as gospel. Talking about sovereigns and high value coins being worn, do we think there's a connection, therefore, with your choice of coin to be worn and the meaning behind it? Do we think that if you're wearing a sovereign, you're wearing it in sort of an ostentatious display of wealth kind of way? And if you're wearing perhaps a farthing or a low value coin, that's more likely to have some sentimental appeal or sentimental value to you?
I think if you're talking about the farthing in particular, lots of people have a connection to that bird that's on it, the wren, thinking that it's a really sweet design, or having a kind of a connection to it in remembering your childhood and that sort of thing. That if I was wearing a farthing, it would be because I liked the design of it rather than it being a show of wealth.
It's so individualistic though, isn't it? Because yes, obviously sovereign's very blingy. In the name of the podcast, this is about bling, this one. But people may well be wearing a coin just because it's been passed down through the family.
Yeah, it might be a family heirloom. It might have a particular connection to you. It might have been minted in the year that you were born, or an anniversary year, or an important year to you. There's so many different ways and reasons behind why somebody might choose a coin to wear.
Or in very rare cases, it's got your father on. The example that we found recently.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So Lady Soames, Sir Winston Churchill's youngest daughter, very often wore a crown piece, a Churchill crown, a large silver coin, which was struck in 1965.
On his death.
Yeah, to remember his death.
That's really poignant. That's the really personal and touching reason to wear a coin. And it's not a small coin either, is it?
It's a chunky, big thing, a crown piece.
So you know you were wearing it.
And today, the Mint is turning its hand to coin jewellery as well. And we spoke to the Royal Mint's chief engraver to find out more.
Well, thanks, Gordon, for coming and chatting with us today. Chief engraver, pretty good job title, really. What does that actually mean, and what does your job involve?
That's a tricky one, really. Traditionally, the chief engraver would be the guy who leads all the engravers. I trained as an apprentice engraver originally, and the idea was you were an apprentice, then you were a fully qualified engraver, then you stayed for another 10, 15 years and became an adequate engraver, and then just before you retired, you became the chief engraver. Engraving by hand is not such a critical part of developing coin designs now. We use a lot of technology. So the chief engraver post became something more of managing the design of coins and the functionality of the tools that make them. And now I've probably less to do with coins than I've ever had before. I've kind of gone a circular route from starting as a jeweller and ended up helping to facilitate jewellery production at the Royal Mint.
So you've always had that sort of love of jewellery.
Yes.
There's always been that sort of background interest in jewellery that you've sort of always sort of nodded back to, if you like.
Yeah, I've always been fascinated by the small. I'm intimidated by large sheets of paper. So if you give me a large sheet of paper, I'm liable to draw something tiny in the corner of it. And that's probably what pulled me into coin design. And it's probably what maintains me in the idea of jewellery as well. It's that idea of tiny art, or art on a tiny scale.
Really those tiny details and those sort of hidden symbolism almost that's in our coinage. And obviously you've got that similarity between coins and jewellery of their tiny, beautiful pieces of art, but they're also made of metal. So you've got that sort of similarity there of the production side of things. And the Mint now is moving into making jewellery itself. So your background of being a jeweller is really coming to the fore now. Why is the Mint making jewellery now?
I think the Mint really wants to be recognised as the place to go if you want to make anything out of precious metals or to deal with precious metals. And there's always been this natural link, really, between the tiny precious metal coins, because originally many of them were in precious metals or metals that were precious, even copper, and jewellery. And the fact that it's precious metal means the scale tends to be small. So I think we had a natural fit between coins and jewellery in terms of the scale and content of the pieces, but also there's the technical process of manufacturing them. So one of the things that we're able to do heavily at the Royal Mint is that invest in kit. So we've got lots of kit that we've used to produce coins that perhaps a bench jeweller or an independent jeweller or even a large-scale jewellery manufacturer wouldn't normally have access to. You wouldn't invest £500,000 in a laser to produce a really fine surface, but we've already got those lasers so we can adapt them and use them. So we've got a place in the market, I suppose, we've got the history, we've got the connection with gold and precious metals, but also we've got that place in the market when it comes to quality and detail and, the finest level of interest that you could have on a piece of jewellery. And
how does the Mint's history and the Mint sort of previous output influence the look of the jewellery that's being produced now?
We've done this in multiple stages. So the first launch of jewellery was produced in a certain way for a certain reason. So it was based on bullion. And it was all about very simple design, very high quality finish. We wanted to move away from, there's a tendency at the moment to fast track jewellery development in terms of you can 3D print it and you can cast it and you can create something from an idea into something physical very rapidly. But the quality is usually pretty bad. And I think the democratization of that process, anybody can do that process, means that you can also end up with some very bad design. So poor quality products, poor quality design. So the first launch we did was around very high quality finish, very simple designs. We related it to our bullion. So it was more to do with the fact that it was made out of precious metal. And generally, although we have included some degree of pave diamonds in our offering, it tends to be fundamentally metal. That's what we're good at. So we're not going to, at the moment, we're not going to set huge diamonds and sell something around the investment in precious stones. It's really about the investment in precious metals. So that was our original thing. So the expectation, I think, is if the Royal Mint does jewellery, it's going to be about putting coins in pieces of jewellery. And we wanted to move away from that as in the initial concept, and then start bringing it in as though it were a logical progression from any jeweller to do these things, rather than it's the Royal Mint, we're going to stick coins in. Actually, it's actually quite a nice idea to put coins in jewellery, and just so happens we're Royal Mint and we're going to do that. So our second launch was more about the aesthetics of coin. So things like fluted edges or reeded edges or milled edges, whichever we prefer to call them. Tiny little details that appear on coins, security features, that sort of thing. Some of it was related directly to history. So the idea of milled edges on coins were there to reduce the opportunity to clip the edges of coins and take precious metals away from the currency, so the toenail clippings. So some of the aesthetics of our Tutorman range was based on those curls of metal that you would get if you'd cut it off the edge of a coin.
So we've got seeing a sort of a progression and not doing the obvious almost. Because people have worn coins as jewellery for thousands of years. There's, since Roman times and before, the coins have been worn as jewellery because people feel a connection to them, because they're precious. They're precious in terms of the memories that they can hold and the metal that they're made from. And that's something that we're now, as the Royal Mint, we're taking forward and using as an inspiration in sort of this new chapter of the Royal Mint.
Yeah, I think there's two main aspects. There's the idea of preciousness and a recognisably precious object. So historically, you put a gold coin in there, it's instantly recognised in that you're displaying some aspect of your wealth. And there may be also that emotional connection. So this is the coin that I was given on this date, or, this is the money that I spent on setting up my business originally, and now I'm a multi-billionaire in groats, whatever it might have been historically. But there's also the aesthetic connection as well, small objects of beauty, and there's maybe some physical aspect of that as well, in terms of you're wearing something that looks better if you look at it close. So you're actually drawing people towards you to question about what you're wearing and what it means. So I think there's, I wouldn't like to say it's relationship building, but there is that thing. If you wear a piece of jewellery, you want to share the fact that you're wearing it and show it, and maybe bring people close to share your thoughts on it as well.
That's interesting. Yeah, you're wearing a story.
Yes.
You've chosen to wear something, and there's that discussion around why. And this is part of the Royal Mint's future plans, isn't it? This is all about the Mint diversifying, moving forward, and it's part of a bigger project, I suppose, which ties in with our precious metal recovery plant. So all of the gold and silver that are used in the 886 range, it's recycled gold, isn't it?
Yeah, all the gold and silver is recycled. We're hoping that our recycling on site gets better, that we'll have a larger volume of gold to work with. I mean, that's probably one of our constraints at the moment, is to try and get enough gold to really get us going. For example, if you want, in one process, for example, casting, if you want to cast a single object that might weigh 10 grams, you've probably got to have 25, even 40 grams of gold to put in the mold in order for it to fill that mold. So a lot of the gold is having to go through numerous processes again and again and again. But we need a much bigger volume of gold at the starting point, although it never gets thrown away, it always gets recycled, than we do on the final object of jewellery. So gold is always, it's a constraint, and it's particularly now actually in the environment where the value of gold has gone up. People are tending to hang on to it in the hope that it'll sell, at a higher price later on. Big industrial businesses are snatching it up as well. So gold is kind of tricky at the moment. And the fact that we're able to take gold that was destined for landfill and reintroduce it into a system where it can be used again by our precious metal recovery plant is particularly poignant at the moment, when the gold price is going up and scarcity is a problem. In order to recover precious metals from electronic waste, you're talking about hundreds of tons at one end of waste material coming in, being processed to extract grams or a few hundred grams of gold at the other end. So it's always that massive scale at one end, all coming down to some guy sat at his bench in the other end, whittling away at the tiniest jump ring that he's going to solder onto something. So I think there's always that contrast to scale.
Like, there's something satisfying about making something by hand and seeing something at the end of the day. Yeah,
I mean, we came to a point last year where we're starting to move people around the business and asking them where they would like to go. And strangely enough, the jewellery area, 886, became the most popular area for people to go. There's a really good connection between being given a lump of metal or a sheet of metal or a bar of metal, and then through a process transforming it into some beautiful object that you can wear.
Such a great interview, and the 886 range is still something that's quite new to us here at the Royal Mint, but they have produced some really interesting pieces inspired by the coinage and by our history. And it's not just coins and pendants either.
No, I like how inventive they've been with the collection, and it always makes me feel kind of proud when I see them, because they've taken this inspiration from our collection. The Royal Mint Museum was set up to provide inspiration for designers, and that's still what it's doing, but in a different way.
So 2 centuries after we were set up, we're still fulfilling our original purpose to inspire the Royal Mint.
And it's doing really well. You know, it was recently featured at Paris Fashion Week with Stella McCartney. So it's really getting out there, and they're really doing really, really good stuff. And it's a credit to the organisation.
Yeah, it's that point that Gordon was making about not choosing the obvious, that they wanted to launch with things that used the ideas of coins, maybe little features that you'd find on a coin, but not just putting a coin on a bit of jewellery. Is so inventive. I love those caustic designs that reflect an image onto wherever the light shines off them.
Cufflink, and you can shine light on it, and it will shine an image onto the table or something based on the light.
And they've used sort of Tower Mint marks and things, which I'm familiar with from the tooling store, which I've seen on these little bag stamps and things. But the idea of that then translating into a bit of jewellery, it says something about the Mint as an institution, I think.
And that starts to bring us to a close to the episode. But before we finish, it's time for a penny for your thoughts. And we're going to start with Abigail.
My job creating exhibitions means that I'm absolutely fascinated by stories. It's my job to pull out stories from these objects and tell them in a hopefully interesting way. And I think that's what I like about this episode and what we've discussed here, is that there will always be a story behind why somebody has chosen to wear a coin as a necklace. And I would be particularly interested if somebody was wearing some coin jewellery, partly because of my job, but partly because I like to wear coins as jewellery, and always have, even before working here. I think they are tiny, beautiful objects that, like Gordon says, sort of draw you closer and encourage conversation. So if I saw somebody wearing a piece of coin jewellery, not necessarily something big and blingy, if you're wearing a pre-decimal farthing that's all worn and battered, I want to know, why is that important to you? Why is that special? There's bound to be a story behind it. And I think that's what really fascinates me.
It's that great bit of continuity between today and what was going on in the Harpole treasure. There was a reason behind both of those things being worn. So somebody wearing it today and somebody wearing it into the 6th century.
That reason might be the same.
Yeah.
All those centuries apart, that reason might be the same, and it's a way of connecting us.
What about you, Susie? What about your penny for your thoughts?
I think it's kind of related. I like the fact that we talked about both the ancient and the modern, and how we always have worn coins and probably always will in some shape or form. And when I was looking at examples of coin jewellery, I found bits of jewellery made by the Italian fashion house Bulgari, who for their 50th anniversary, American anniversary in 2022, they made jewellery which had ancient Roman coins embedded in them. So
we've gone full circle in the episode.
Exactly. So in the same way that these kind of the Romano-British coins were embedded into the jewellery of the time, we've taken that old coinage and put it in really, really modern jewellery, or Bulgari have put it in really modern jewellery. And I love that full circle. The
continuity.
Yeah.
Yet again, it just shows the link with the past that is relevant in coin jewellery throughout history.
Absolutely. The ancient fused with the absolutely modern and contemporary.
On that note, it just leaves me to say thank you for listening to this episode of Secret Life of Coins. We also need to say a big thank you to our guests, Ellie Cox and Gordon Summers, who have so freely shared their knowledge with us today. Our music is by Justin Bryant, and our editor is Hugh James. If you have liked what you have heard today, please rate, like, and subscribe to the podcast. Until next time, it's goodbye from Susie.
Goodbye.
And Abigail.
Bye-bye.
And until next time, it's thank you and goodbye from me.
In the next episode, we'll be exploring how coins have always been a central feature of royal ceremonies, from rewarding worthy members of the community to bashing down the doors of Parliament. See you next time on The Secret Life of Coins.